Elijah Merrick stood tall in the center of the great galactic hall, his calm voice filling the air around him as alien leaders from 100 worlds listened in silence.
This is not
He was
war.
Earth's
This
ambassador,
is
the
justice.
one they called the voice of Earth, not because he shouted, not because he threatened, but because he spoke with reason and warmth and truth. His words often stopped wars before they started. His presence brought hope to humans and fear to those who wanted power. Without peace, his speeches reached far corners of the galaxy, shared and replayed again and again like messages from a wiser age. He believed that every race had the right to live, to grow, to speak without fear. But there were others who did not share that dream. They called themselves the Silent Fist, and they worked from the shadows, hiding behind lies and secret plans. They feared Earth's growing influence. They hated the calm strength of Elijah's words. They thought peace was weakness, and they wanted silence, not the silence of peace, but the silence of control. As Elijah stepped up to the main platform on that final day, the hall was filled with light. Banners floated above each seat, glowing with the colors of the many worlds. The cameras were live across the galaxy. Billions of eyes watched, and billions of ears waited to hear him speak once more. He raised his hand with a kind smile, ready to begin his message about unity, about trust, about the need for change. Then it happened in a flash, too quick for the eye to follow. A sharp line of blue light struck from somewhere above. It hit his chest, and Elijah fell. There was no scream, no cry, only gasps and silence, the kind of silence that freezes everything, even time. For a moment, no one moved. Guards stood frozen. Leaders looked at each other in shock and fear, and the cameras kept rolling, showing the fall of Earth's voice to every corner of the stars. The energy pulse that hit him was traced back to a hidden device planted inside the ceiling, far from view, far from reach. It was not a mistake. It was not random. It was a message. The Silent Fist claimed it hours later in a secret broadcast they sent across pirate channels with their symbol, a black hand over a broken planet. They said Earth had spoken for too long. They said it was time for stronger voices to lead. The galaxy waited for Earth to reply, but Earth said nothing, not in words, not in actions, no statements, no broadcasts, no warnings, only silence. Earth's embassies on other planets shut down one by one. No ships came or left from Earth. The gates went dark. Earth's voice had been taken, and Earth itself had gone quiet. At first, some thought maybe they were mourning, maybe they were gathering, maybe they were lost in shock. But days passed, and still no answer came, and people began to worry, not just worry, but fear. Because Earth was not weak. Earth was never weak. Earth was quiet, but behind that quiet was something no one wanted to wake. A week after Elijah's death, a scout ship near Jupiter picked up strange readings. They saw something moving near the gas giant, something large and cold and dark, a formation of ships unmarked and silent heading outward from the planet's orbit. The footage went public, and the galaxy watched in fear. The ships were black with no flags, no lights, no signals. They moved in perfect silence, with perfect form, like shadows born from metal and fire. People started calling them the Black Silence. They looked like they had no soul, no mercy, just purpose. One alien leader said it out loud, what others feared to think. He said Earth is not coming to talk. Earth is coming to make them listen. And still Earth said nothing. Across the galaxy, worlds held meetings, councils formed, defense plans were drawn. Some begged for answers, others prepared for war. But nothing made the fear go away, not really, because everyone knew something had changed, something deep, something final. The galaxy had taken Earth's voice, and now something else would speak for them, not with words, not with kindness, not with calm, but with silence colder than space and sharper than steel. The stars over Mars looked quiet that night, as if they too waited for what was coming, as if they too knew that something terrible had been awakened, something old, something hidden, something born not from hate, but from silence. General Orion Keel stood on the observation deck of a Martian citadel, a tall structure made from black alloy and glass, its walls reflecting the orange dust of Mars and the cold blue shimmer of the upper sky. He wore the dark uniform of Earth's inner command, the last circle of leaders who had been chosen not for their politics or their charm, but for their resolve. He had been there when they pulled Elijah's body from the floor of the Galactic Hall. He had seen the hole in the ambassador's chest. He had touched the blood on the marble stone, and he had said nothing because words no longer mattered, not in the world that now stood beyond that single act of betrayal. Earth's silence had been a test. It had been a moment to see who would speak, who would reach out, who would call for peace, who would call for justice. But none had done so. None had come forward with truth, only lies, only fear, only offers that tasted like control. The black silence had not been sent. It had not been ordered. It had been waiting deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden in oceans and craters and caves, where no light reached, waiting for the time to rise, waiting for the day when Earth would lose its voice. Each ship was made from living metal fused with neural code grown in labs, older than most colonies. Their shape was like wings wrapped in knives, their power drawn from cores built from crushed stars. They did not speak, they did not flash lights, they simply moved in silence, carrying the will of Earth. And now they had arrived in orbit around Mars, waiting like wolves at the edge of the fire, their shadows passing over Martian soil, sending ripples across settlements. Below, people stared up and wondered what would come next. General Keel turned to the holomap. In front of him, planets lit up in red, trade routes blinking with alerts, Earth's enemies marked in bold yellow systems, those who had smiled during Elijah's death, those who had cheered in private, those who now watched in fear. He activated the central node and sent the signal, a single wave across secured channels, a simple message carried with no code, no lock, only one word: justice. The black silence moved at once, splitting into 7 separate fleets, each one aimed at a target chosen not for politics, but for betrayal. The worlds who had funded the silent fist, the syndicates who had built the weapon, the governments who had smiled and said nothing while Elijah fell. The first target was Dravik Prime, a planet known for its deep wealth and shallow morals, a place where crime ruled and silence could be bought with gold. Its leaders laughed when they heard Earth was silent. They threw parties when Elijah died. They made bets on how long Earth would hide. They did not laugh when the sky over Dravik turned black, when the sun dimmed behind the massive ships, when their shields failed in seconds and their towers fell in minutes. The black silence did not land. They did not invade. They simply erased the surface with precision and fire that made no sound, only light. News spread fast, but no one spoke. No one blamed Earth, not yet, because they knew they had pushed too far, they had cut too deep. The second target was Caritha's Reach, a mining colony on the edge of the Trion Belt. They had supplied the energy cells that powered the assassin's beam weapon. They had sold it for profit, not for politics. And now their skies burned with silent trails of death. The black silence left behind no metal, no stone, only fields of ash glowing in the dark. General Keel watched it all from the Citadel, his face calm, his hands steady. He did not enjoy it. He did not hate it. He simply accepted it, because this was the cost of peace. Brokenness was the voice Earth now used. Deep within the Earth core command, a different kind of silence was being broken. Old systems were waking, ancient AIs long dormant. Now humming with purpose, they began simulations of future wars, not for conquest, not for expansion, but for survival, for balance, for the price of trust lost. On Titan Base, an outpost that had once served as a listening post, a team of specialists picked up a strange signal. It came from a ship near the edge of known space, one that claimed to have information about the Silent Fist. It said it was a defector. It said it carried data on those who had planned Elijah's murder. The message was sent directly to General Keel, and he reviewed it in full. The defector was a Zarn diplomat named Vurek, once part of the inner circle of the Silent Fist, now claiming regret, now seeking to save himself. He offered names, he offered files, he offered locations. Keel listened to the message 3 times, then sent a ship, not to rescue, not to question, but to confirm the truth. If Vurek spoke truth, he would be protected. If he lied, he would never speak again. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council scrambled to respond. They held emergency meetings, they formed crisis teams, they argued about sanctions, about negotiations, about sending ambassadors to Earth. But no one wanted to speak the words out loud. No one wanted to admit what they had done. They feared the silence more than they feared war. On Earth, families lit candles in windows. Children learned Elijah's last speech by heart. Murals appeared on city walls, painted in silver and blue, with one sentence written below, in every language: let the stars remember. Part 2 ends with the stars still watching Mars, still glowing red, the black silence, still circling like birds waiting for the next name, the next lie, the next betrayal. Earth had lost its voice and found its will, and the galaxy would learn what it meant to strike the heart of a world that had wanted only peace. The stars above the shattered moon of Vexor 9 blinked like silent witnesses as the third wave of the Black Silence advanced through the void, their movements precise, their presence dark like shadows. Without source, their hulls coated in a plasma-absorbing alloy that made them nearly invisible to most scans. Beneath them, the surface of Vexor 9 trembled with hidden fear, its cities carved into deep ravines, powered by stolen cores built with tech reverse-engineered from Earth's earliest quantum designs, the same tech that was used to power the weapon that killed Elijah. The Council of Vexor had long profited from chaos. They had sold secrets to pirates, sold coordinates to slavers, even brokered deals with enemy agents behind Earth's back. They were never loyal, only useful. And when usefulness faded, betrayal became cheap. Now the time had come for payment, and the Collector wore wings of silence. Commander Talia Varen stood inside the Black Silence flagship, her breath steady, her eyes sharp as they scanned the operation layout before her. She had served Earth since the Day of Smoke, when rogue colonies bombed the sky towers over Africa. She had led the defense of Luna Base when mercenaries tried to take control of the orbital ring, and she had trained under General Orion Keel himself. Talia was not here for vengeance. She was here for clarity. She was here for correction. She was here because the galaxy had forgotten the price of balance. Below the ships, Vexor 9 activated its planetary shields. Glowing arcs of violet energy wrapped the crust in pulsing waves. Defense cannons rotated, and charge command bunkers filled with leaders shouting orders and calculating odds. But deep in their bones, they knew none of it would matter. The Black Silence did not threaten, it did not demand, it did not warn, it only acted, and when it acted, it erased without pride, without cruelty, just certainty. Talia gave the final order in 12 Earth seconds. The first wave descended, precision strikes along energy lines and shield anchors broke the defenses like glass touched by flame. The silence of strikes was more terrifying than noise. No explosions, no screaming, just sudden black flashes, and then stillness. The Capitol's spire cracked at its core, fell into its own foundations, and vanished in a smoke beneath the ravine. The leaders did not survive, not because they were targeted, but because the building they hid in no longer existed. Talia marked the mission complete, and the fleet rose again, returning to orbit without delay. Across the galaxy, whispers spread again. Colonies once bold grew quiet. Fringe worlds once defiant began sealing borders. Even independent traders turned off long-range beacons, afraid that any signal might invite the wings of silence. But Earth was not done. Back on Titan, the signal from the Zarn defector Vurek had been confirmed authentic. He had indeed escaped from a hidden fortress known as the Pit, located on a rogue planet near the dark edge of Sector Theta 9. The Pit was said to be where the Silent Fist planned operations, trained assassins, and developed new weapons beyond Council law. Vurek had given coordinates encrypted inside a dying beacon. His message said the Pit held files, recordings, proof of a galactic conspiracy larger than anyone suspected. General Keel received the data with a grim nod and passed the order to Talia Varen. This would be her next objective: to infiltrate the Pit, retrieve the proof, and ensure no one ever used the silence of space against Earth again. The journey took 6 days through fields of collapsing stars, gravity wells, and magnetic storms. The rogue planet was not marked on any map, its orbit unstable, its light warped by a nearby collapsed star. It looked like a scar in space, a floating wound. The Pit itself was buried under obsidian ice, protected by gravity mines and surveillance drones. But the Black Silence had already learned to navigate such traps. They had already mapped it from afar, already counted every heartbeat within. Talia descended with a team of 5 operatives, each one trained in zero-echo warfare technique that used sound nullification, stealth neurothreads, and memory suppression to move without detection. Not even AI could track them once they entered structure. They found the entrance guarded by 2 syndicate agents and removed them in complete silence, entering through a narrow shaft that led to the data vaults. Inside, they discovered more than files. They found cloning tanks with hybrid soldiers made from Earth DNA, spliced with alien tech. They found propaganda machines running loops of Elijah's assassination framed as an Earth rebellion. They found a chamber where artificial voices mimicked Elijah's, tone twisted in a false broadcast that justified aggression against Earth. Talia uploaded all the data into a compressed core and planted a timed charge that would collapse the pit into itself once the mission was complete. On their way out, they encountered resistance guards alerted by motion in lower holes, opened fire, but could not match the precision of Earth's silent warriors. One by one, the enemy fell, and the silence followed again like a curtain closing on a false stage. The team escaped through the outer vent tunnel. Just as the charge went off, the explosion folded space inward, collapsing the entire pit into a single sphere of molten glass. Back at the Citadel, General Keel received the core, analyzed its contents, and broadcast fragments across neutral channels. Without words, only visuals. Without context, only truth. The galaxy watched Elijah being struck, his body falling, his voice stolen. They watched files showing meetings between council members and syndicate leaders. They saw credits transferred for silence. They saw blueprints for Earth's destruction passed around like merchandise. There were no more questions, only consequences. The Fifth Fleet of the Black Silence now moved toward the hub planet Erolos, 5, a key trade world and secret funder of the Silent Fist. Known for its pride, its wealth, and its denial, it had claimed innocence, at every turn offered condolences while hiding contracts beneath gold. The fleet would arrive in 3 days. But something else began to happen across the star's small colonies. Once afraid, now rose up independent traders, flew banners bearing Elijah's last words, "Let the stars remember," and one by one old Earth allies began to return, not in force, but in faith. They offered resources, they offered passage, they offered names of those who had laughed during Elijah's death. They came not because of fear, but because truth had finally burned through the lies. On Earth, murals glowed in the night, children lit candles, and whispered stories of the voice who had tried to bring peace. Parents told them of the silence that followed and the fire that rose. In orbit near Jupiter, a new monument was being built, a massive statue of Elijah carved from starlight alloy, facing outward, his eyes fixed on the stars, beyond his hand raised not in war, but in warning. The galaxy had forgotten what Earth could become without a voice, and now it would remember forever. The twin moons of Erolos 5 shimmered with deceptive calm as the Fifth Fleet of the Black Silence approached in formation, their hulls cloaked in ion shadows, their weapons humming with restrained fury, their mission clear and unshaken in purpose. Within the command ship, Talia Varen reviewed the holographic overlay of the Erolos capital. She observed defense grids linked to orbital stations, cargo ports now sealed by planetary lockdown, and a network of surveillance satellites rotating like vultures over a corpse, each programmed to jam intrusions and mask outbound transmissions. Erolos 5 had always denied involvement in Elijah's death, yet financial links revealed by the pit's recovered core proved otherwise. Credits flowed through shell accounts to mercenary groups disguised as security firms. They funded labs that created synthetic voices. They distributed propaganda to fringe worlds, painting Earth as an empire of tyranny. Talia knew what had to be done, not to destroy a planet, but to dismantle a system built on deception. Her fleet did not open with fire. Instead, they released silence, not absence of sound, but the signal of reckoning, a broadcastless wave that shut down outer sensors and confused the orbital AI grids, freezing their targeting protocols and turning their surveillance satellites into spinning relics. On the surface, Erolos elites gathered in panic inside titanium bunkers. They could not escape through ports grounded by shield locks. They could not call for help across blocked frequencies. They could only watch as black ships descended like myths given shape by vengeance. Talia led the ground entry. With precision, her team moved through the eastern corridor, bypassing turrets, using pulse disruptors and zero-echo threads. Their suits blended with stone, their movements like wind and still air. They reached the Hall of Balance, a marble tower where the Council of Erolos once ruled through golden lies. Inside the hall, council members huddled around panic consoles, their robes tangled, their voices cracked with disbelief. But no one came to rescue them, not from Earth, not from the other worlds, not even from their allies who now denied them in public and erased their names in private. Talia walked past broken statues and golden mosaics. Her boots left marks on the floor, dust settled behind her like forgotten glory. She entered the chamber and faced the council. No words exchanged, no negotiations, offered only a small device placed on the table containing recordings from the pit, showing signatures, names, and faces, showing Elijah's last speech intercepted by Aerolos drones and buried beneath false headlines. The council stared in silence as Talia activated the memory feed and watched the truth unfold frame by frame, betrayal by betrayal, credit by credit. Outside, the people of Aerolos watched too, for the black silence had reactivated one satellite enough to beam visuals across public screens. Children pointed in confusion, elders bowed their heads, merchants turned off music for the first time in decades. The streets of Aerolos fell quiet as the truth poured over them like rain on desert stone. Talia left the hall without harm, but with purpose. Her message delivered, her mission complete. The council would not be executed. They would be tried not by Earth, but by their own people who now knew the depth of their deception. The black silence rose again, vanishing into the stars, leaving no craters, no smoke, only memory and consequence. From that day, Aerolos 5 changed its anthem, no longer sang of pride and independence, but of vigilance and remembrance. Their banners bore a silver voice, marked their monuments, now included Elijah, standing among stars as voice, the one they tried to silence, but could never erase. Back on Earth, the Citadel received reports from over 17 systems. Fringe colonies began opening trade routes again, not for profit, but in alliance. Voices once quiet offered to join the Earth Accord again. Old enemies turned into cautious partners, cautious but sincere. General Keel observed it all with measured eyes. He knew this was not peace, yet was a breath, a pause before the next shadow. Somewhere beyond the known maps, an ancient ship drifted near the edge of a binary graveyard, a vessel long thought lost, carrying passengers not seen in generations, their skin marked by the passage of time and their minds bound by something older than memory. They received the signal, the fragments from the pit, the whispers of resurrection and betrayal, and they turned toward Earth once more. Deep in the void where stars grew faint and gravity bent like silk around the bones of dead galaxies, a ship moved with silent intention, its hull aged by 1,000 forgotten wars, its engines humming with energy unknown to modern science, its name whispered only in fragments of prophecy and banned archives. The Warden of Origin had awakened. Inside the ship were beings no longer fully human, not aliens, not machines, but something between born of Earth yet reshaped by Exodus. They were the Echo Division, a remnant of Project Genesis, lost after the Exodus Protocol 1,000 years ago, now returned by signal, by truth, by Elijah's final message. They moved in silence through silver corridors lined with memory crystals, each storing human history, each echoing the voice of Earth's past. Elijah's face now glowed in every chamber, his final words replayed in loops across ancient terminals. They knew what had happened. They felt the tremble of betrayal and the promise of retaliation. The Warden's commander, known only as Vaktis, stood before the central memory sphere, his eyes glowing faint green, his hand raised in the gesture of initiation, his voice low, yet resonating through metal and code alike. He had once been human, once walked under the blue sky of Earth. Now he was fused with something else, something that could never forget nor forgive. Vaktis turned toward his crew, each one modified beyond flesh, each loyal beyond programming. They had no families, no names, only directives long buried, now reawakened. The annihilation of Earth's voice was not just a loss, it was a call to arms, to justice, to balance, not with destruction, but revelation. On Earth, the Citadel detected anomalies, readings from sectors, long dormant signals that matched known civilization codes once used in pre-unification missions. Keel stared at the reports with narrowed eyes, his memories whispering of ghost ships and classified experiments. He issued a level Crimson protocol and summoned Talia Varen immediately. Talia arrived with no delay, her uniform marked by the recent campaign. On Aerolos, her presence commanding, yet curious. She studied the hologram, showing the Warden's trajectory, and did not blink once she had read about them in forbidden archives, heard rumors among the pit's deepest rebels. Some called them ghosts, some called them angels, others believed they were extinct. Keel spoke only once. They are not allies, not enemies, they are the mirror. Meanwhile, the Warden of Origin reached the edge of Sol System, its cloak still active, its presence undetected, except by those who remembered Voctus' open communication lines using frequencies that vibrated with harmonic signatures only Earth's ancient core stations could interpret. The Citadel received the message and burst fragments of old Earth dialects, merged with synthetic rhythm, a language built for memory, and pain. One phrase stood above all we remember: Elijah. Earth responded not with weapons, but a signal of trust. Keel approved the activation of the Legacy Beacon, a protocol untouched for centuries, a gesture not of fear but honor. The Warden powered down its cloak, revealing its shape to the stars, a vessel of beauty and terror, shaped like an ancient Earth cathedral, yet pulsing with quantum veins glowing across its body. Talia and a selected envoy team boarded the Citadel's ambassadorial ship, approaching the Warden without shields, without escort, with only intent and history binding them. As they entered the Warden's docking base, silence ruled the air. Then came the resonance, like a song of forgotten oceans, like the sound of Earth breathing through metal and time. Voctus appeared not in person, but as projection, tall and serene eyes full of past wars. He greeted Talia not with words, but with a shared memory. Elijah, as a boy running across green fields of Terra One, laughing under a golden sky. Talia responded by sharing her own memory. Elijah, speaking to the pit, defending the unity of the forgotten, giving voice to the muted, igniting hope in darkness. The memory shimmered between them like light on water. Voctus accepted the offering. The Warden acknowledged Earth not as superior, not as ruler, but as sibling, bruised, yet unbroken. The Echo Division pledged not vengeance, but truth. They would move among the systems, spreading not war, but the facts wrapped in sound and memory, facts that no empire, no council, no alliance could bury again. The mission began that night, not with blasts, but with voices, new signals sent to over 50 worlds, encrypted in emotional layers, crafted to bypass filters and penetrate mind barriers. On Erelos, 5 statues of Elijah now had companions, silver plaques written in the new code. Citizens gathered to listen to transmissions carried by wind and satellite across the Black Sea of space. In the shadows beyond mapped systems, other forces stirred, confused, alarmed, afraid of unity built on truth, afraid of the return of the Warden, afraid of Earth no longer divided. But the Warden moved forward. Voctus moved forward. Earth moved forward. And in the heart of the Citadel, Elijah's voice echoed again, in endless loop, not as cry of loss, but as anthem of rebirth. The stars seemed closer than ever as the Warden drifted through the Korvax passage, a stretch of space feared for its storms, but silent now, as if the galaxy itself awaited the final chapter. Voctus stood before the viewing core, watching light bend and twist through ancient crystal panels. His thoughts were calm, not of war, but of meaning, the kind Elijah once carried with each word. Across Earth, the skies were no longer blue, but silver, with satellite transmissions displaying the truth, uncensored, raw, unfiltered. For the first time in centuries, children learned about the betrayal of their ambassador. In school, elders cried, seeing the truth they had always suspected, now confirmed. The news anchors whispered his name like a legend, like a vow. Talia stood inside Earth's new council hall, its walls made of glass and stone, built atop the ruins of the old Federation. Center, her voice had become powerful not because of anger, but because it carried the weight of loss. She spoke for those silenced, for the dreams crushed by lies and shadows. Her words echoed far beyond Earth, reaching out to colonies in doubt, giving them courage to choose. In the shadows of the dying moon, Lysar, a rebel faction of the Continuum, tried one final attack. They hijacked a broadcast relay, flooding the networks with propaganda, calling the Warden a weapon of deception, accusing Elijah of treason, claiming Earth had been the aggressor. But the people did not listen this time. They had seen too much, learned too much, felt too much. Syrinx, the captain of the Glaive, now stood trial, not in chains, but in front of the assembly of broken world, a gathering of colonies once betrayed and left to die by the Federation and the Continuum. They asked him one question: why he turned on his masters. His answer was simple. He said he saw the truth and could no longer kill for a lie. They let him live and offered him command of the Star Reconciliation Fleet, a symbol that even those shaped by cruelty could change. Meanwhile, deep inside the Warden Voctus opened a sealed chamber, known only to the Origin memory core inside. Lay the original transmission, the unedited raw feed of Elijah's final moments. It was filled with pain, yes, but also with hope. He had smiled, even as the beam tore through his chest. He had whispered something not captured by normal sensors, but the Warden recorded everything, every breath, every vibration. Voctus replayed it again, and again, until he could understand. Elijah had said one sentence, not of revenge, not of fear, but of faith. He said, "They will not break us, they will make us." This memory was uploaded across every ship that pledged itself to truth. Soon it became more than a quote. It became a symbol etched into hulls, carved into walls, inked onto skin. On the surface of the once silent world of Retha's survivors of the Continuum's experiments stepped into light for the first time. Their minds, once controlled, now free. They looked up and saw the Warden descend, not as a warship, but as a healer. It released drones that restored air, cleaned water, reactivated power. They knelt not in worship, but in understanding. Earth sent a message to all systems, not demanding unity, but offering it, not enforcing alliance, but sharing experience. They invited every voice, every species, every creed to a new gathering, not of governments, but of people. It was held aboard the Warden in a chamber now called Elijah's, circle in open space, without chairs, without tables, where each being stood equal, where translators sang in harmony, where memory threads played across walls, showing sorrow and joy, betrayal and forgiveness. Voctus did not speak at the gathering. He simply watched as humans and aliens, once separated by suspicion, now stood hand in hand, or tentacle, or paw, sharing meals, sharing stories, sharing silence that said more than any word. As the session ended, Talia approached Voctus. She asked what was next. His answer came, a smile, one filled with pain, yes, but also with something more, with peace, not the kind built on control, but on choice. The stars outside pulsed gently, as if breathing, and far away on a small moon, where Elijah had once looked up as a child, a statue now stood, not of metal or marble, but of light, shaped by memories, formed by truth, and powered by the promise that no voice truly dies as long as someone chooses to remember.